Good morning. I think we've had quite an interesting beginning, and thank you, Lisa, for putting a lot of dynamism into this. Um, my name is Josina. I am a survivor of gender-based violence. 4 years ago, I was abused by my partner, then partner, in such a brutal way. We were inside a car, and we were having a conversation on where the night was going to end. He had a disagreement. I needed to go home because on that particular day, my mom was turning 70 years old, and he didn't agree with my choice. And so he gave me 3 big blows to my head. The first one was hit me in the forehead. The second one hit me right on my eye because I was turning to him and questioning what was happening. And my eye burst immediately, right there and there. And as I was trying to hold on to it, I then got a 3rd blow, the back of my head. And that's when I ran out of the car and ran for help. I ran and I screamed in many languages because I thought, people would understand socorro, which is help, but they also needed to hear help. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, so hopefully people would come out, but nothing happened. No one came out. The only reaction that I got from the universe was actually of dogs who started barking. Eventually, this person realizes the seriousness of my injury and drives closer to where I was, picks me up, takes me to the hospital. At that point, my journey with violence took a turn and never been the same. It took me quite some time to be attended at the hospital. The doctors see emergencies all the time, and they don't sometimes have the ability to just react. After that, I saw the police, and I kept on asking for help and asking for someone to call my family because I realized that this injury was, my instinct said this was something different. It wasn't just a tear. My instinct said, I might just become blind. Fast forwarding a bit, I traveled then to one of the best clinics in Europe to have the treatment. By then, the doctors diagnosed that, half of my eye had actually come out. And there was a blow to the head. The blow had been so brutal that it exploded the retina. And because of that, there is really nothing that science can do. And that happened actually on October 22nd. That's when I got the news, so it will be 4 years today. I come back to Mozambique and I decide to start a case. I had already started screaming on the day that I was abused, saying I had been beaten up. And the gentleman kept on saying I'd fallen. Eventually, when I get back and I start pursuing this case, I discovered that all my documents had disappeared, both in the hospital, in the police. There was no evidence that I'd been in the hospital for hours. And so it required a process of up and down for quite some time to reconstruct the story. Eventually, even to sit with the head of the the director of the emergency ward, and having to tell the story, and he would say, well, no, I have nothing here. Do you mind if you can recount the steps and show me which doors you came through? And I looked at him and I said, but doctor, I was holding on to an eye. I could barely see from the other one because any movement was extremely painful. Anyway, eventually I had to start that process, and a nurse came and helped me out, clarified things. Then went through a long process of trying to take the issue to court. Documents continued disappearing. Eventually, 2 years after that, had my case heard. Well, the sentence was what it was. It was a very media kind of, it was in the media every single day. You know how it is when it comes to that. The woman ends up, although you're the victim, you end up being vilified and being portrayed as if you caused the violence, you wanted the violence, you wanted to benefit out of the violence even. So that's how my journey started. And the reason I'm sitting here is because since then I've been giving name and face to women who have been abused. For me, time is up because there is a war against women. Men are at war against women. It's the physical one, but it goes into then all the consequences, be in families, be in society, be in the state, and how these different agents actually then deal with women. The reality is that women wake up every single day and they are faced with rape, with violence, with death, with PTSD, which then, you know, it's exactly what happens to an army. Wakes up every day, soldiers die, some become survivors, some become, have deficiencies and disabilities like I do, and many other disabilities. And the ones that come back deal with shell shock for the rest of their lives. So I wanted to kind of bring that comparison and just say, time is up, because we cannot permit, we cannot allow for this kind of war to continue, and we don't respond adequately. You know, time is up because the number of women dying every day is just intolerable. But then the challenge is we should not continue just talking about the numbers. We need to actually humanize those numbers. We need to start saying, Josina is a survivor, Lebohang is a survivor, Karabo is a victim, she passed on. But we need to start making sure, and perhaps that will create the outrage, when we have the numbers and the stories in our heads, and then that guides the kind of involvement and activities and action that is necessary. Time is up because of the cruelty in which these things happen. The time is up because of the silence that then is forced upon all of us to undergo. And you know, it just, it increases and it creates the obstacles for those that decide to actually talk and continue talking. Time is up because of the impunity that we all see in our societies. You know, it's men that murder, men that abuse, and they continue doing their life as if nothing happens. It's the impunity that our leadership actually allows in our communities to continue. It's the lack, actually, of sentences, adequate sentences that actually do, well, we don't know. Research perhaps we might be able to say whether higher sentences will actually deter this kind of behavior. But the truth is, in order for some men to stop doing this, they need to see that there are consequences to those who have done it. Now, we are at the brink, I believe that we are at the brink of one of the ultimate conquests as humankind. And it's the ability to talk about something as intimate as sexual violence, as gender-based violence, as physical abuse, emotional, and just look at the symptoms and try to understand why is it happening. When we start, and it has happened, it's starting already, when we are able to sit with each other and be open about our experiences, when we're able to understand from our counterparts, from men, from custodians of culture, from all these who are influences in our communities, to understand why this is happening, we would have broken perhaps one of the last frontiers in terms of human development. Time is up because survivors of violence cannot continue to be to go through lack of services, or rather comprehensive services, that requires one to go time and time again seeking for help. It's in the police, the response is not adequate. Be in medical field, it's not adequate. There are no shelters, there are no safe spaces for women actually to start the process of healing and regenerating. And of course, we need to just focus on research. We need to put a lot more effort into the research in order to understand human intimacy, in order to understand, as I had said, the meaning of violence. We need empirical evidence of what actually works in order for it to be replicated and to be expanded throughout the world. It's just time for all of us to be outraged, to continue being activists, ensuring there's investment into grassroots in organizations, increased network, so that knowledge is shared and experiences, and indeed knowledge is shared. We just have to say no more. Indeed, time is up. Thank you.